What does it mean to grow up as the eldest daughter? For many, it means stepping into a role that feels less like childhood and more like parenthood. Cooking meals, looking after younger siblings, managing chores, mediating arguments, and comforting parents. Psychologists sometimes call this parentification, which is when children are expected to take on adult responsibilities too early. But over time, a specific phrase has emerged to describe the unique weight carried by firstborn daughters, the eldest daughter syndrome. This isn't a medical diagnosis, it's more of a cultural reality. A way of naming how eldest daughters are often burdened with invisible labor, higher expectations, and emotional caretaking that shapes not just childhood, but adulthood too. So what does it actually look like? What are the patterns? And how do they affect who we become? Therapist Katie Morton has described 8 of the most common signs of eldest daughter syndrome. These signs appear again and again in families around the world. Let's break them down, not just as a list, but as a lens for understanding how eldest daughters grow, adapt, and sometimes carry wounds they never asked for. Sign number 1, an overwhelming sense of responsibility. Eldest daughters often carry responsibilities far beyond their years, not just tidying up their room or finishing their homework, but waking up siblings for school, making meals, and even managing the emotional state of the household. This responsibility isn't temporary. It becomes internalized, a belief that worth comes from being the caretaker. In adulthood, it often shows up as difficulty receiving help or guilt when putting personal needs first. Responsibility teaches eldest daughters that love is conditional. And the next lesson that comes from that only perfection will keep it, which leads us to sign number 2, overachievement and perfectionism. From an early age, eldest daughters are held to a higher standard. Be a role model, do well in school, excel in sports, set an example. The result? A deep drive to achieve, often fueled by the idea that love and recognition must be earned. Compliments may feel undeserved. Success may feel hollow. Rest may feel impossible. And yet the pressure to perform never ends. But what happens when the drive to achieve collides with the fear of failure? For many eldest daughters, it becomes a life of constant anxiety and vigilance, which brings us to sign number 3, anxiety and hypervigilance. When a child is asked to worry about everyone else, worry becomes second nature. Eldest daughters often grow up hyper-aware of moods, anticipating conflict, and scanning for what needs to be done. This constant vigilance creates anxiety, a mind that can't relax, and a body that can't rest. Even in adulthood, the fear of dropping the ball lingers. Hypervigilance teaches eldest daughters to read every room and anticipate every need. And once you've learned to scan for problems, the next step is obvious. Fix them, no matter the cost. That's where people-pleasing begins, which is sign number 4. Eldest daughters are often tasked with keeping the peace, smoothing over arguments, cheering up parents, and stepping in when siblings fight. Over time, they learn that making others happy is the fastest way to avoid conflict. This habit of people-pleasing feels like selflessness, but in reality, it silences personal needs and feeds exhaustion. People-pleasing may keep the peace, but it erases the self. And when your own needs are silenced long enough, the next struggle becomes inevitable, setting boundaries. Sign number 5. In families where eldest daughters take on adult roles, boundaries are rarely respected. Children may be treated as confidants, therapists, or even partners to their parents. Without boundaries, it becomes difficult to know where one boundary ends and another begins. In adulthood, this often shows up as saying yes to too much or tolerating unhealthy dynamics. Boundaries are meant to protect, but when they're absent, protection turns into sacrifice, and sacrifice hardens into resentment, which is sign number 6. With responsibility comes resentment. While siblings play, eldest daughters may be cleaning. While parents unburden themselves, eldest daughters may be absorbing pain. This resentment does not mean ingratitude. It means imbalance. It means needs left unmet. It means carrying what should have been shared. But for many eldest daughters, even resentment comes with a punishment. The guilt of feeling it in the first place. Resentment says, "This isn't fair." Guilt answers, "How dare you think that?" And so the cycle deepens, and we make way for sign number 7, guilt. Resentment is often followed by guilt. Guilt for feeling angry, guilt for wanting freedom, guilt for setting boundaries, even guilt for pursuing a life of one's own. Because when the eldest daughter role is deeply ingrained, independence can feel like betrayal. But guilt is not proof of wrongdoing. It's proof of conditioning. When guilt convinces you that putting yourself first is wrong, every connection becomes lopsided, which is why so many eldest daughters find themselves repeating the same dynamics they grew up with in adulthood. And we finally arrive at sign number 8, difficulties in adult relationships. The lessons of childhood don't stay in childhood. They follow eldest daughters into adulthood, shaping the way relationships form. Often she becomes the mom friend, organizing, supporting, caretaking, but rarely feeling cared for herself. In partnerships, she may carry the weight of decisions and daily responsibilities, while quietly yearning for someone to share the load. The cost is subtle but profound, being surrounded by people yet feeling profoundly alone. Because when identity is built on being strong, vulnerability can feel foreign, even dangerous. Which raises the final difficult question. If love requires being seen fully, how can eldest daughters learn to be seen when they've spent a lifetime hiding their own needs? Eldest daughter syndrome is not a diagnosis. It's a survival script, written by families, reinforced by culture, and performed by children who had little choice. This script can create leaders, protectors, and caregivers, but it also leaves exhaustion, hidden grief, and the quiet ache of not knowing who you are apart from service. Healing begins with recognition, naming the invisible labor, the perfectionism, the guilt, and from there choosing a different path, one where care is mutual, where love is not conditional, where worth does not depend on sacrifice. Because the question is no longer, what role must you play? The question is, who do you become when you are finally free to stop performing the eldest daughter's script and are allowed to simply be?